Today I am with Chris, one of the owners of Blue Collar Marketing. He's an absolute G when it comes to cold market outreach. And I have the privilege of talking to him about talking to clients, talking to potential leads here. And so tell us a bit about yourself, Chris.
Yeah, big time. So yeah, one of the owners of Blue Collar Marketing, an agency that's been around since about 2018. 22 is officially in
Business like a music business, like an agency, and doing cold outreach.
for sure, man. Yeah, well, to kind of just touch on like the business to business side, like I love, to be honest, like anything that you can like automate and then just hit at like volumes, I think is like a really cool kind of tool thing to have into your business there. So when it comes to like cold outreach to business, it's very much like, as you said, man, like a volume play. Like you want to make sure that you have like a targeted list, and you can get that through a variety of ways, rather through like scraping it through the internet, buying it from other people, using Facebook ads or whatever to see what kind of audience that you're generating. But for us, a lot of the times we actually go and collect our own data. So whether that's like scraping stuff off of like directories, so like Yellow Pages, Google My Business, Facebook, Yelp, all kind of like different places where like businesses like to hide. Those are all great sources of information to kind of grab contacts from. So when it comes to the actual like volume of the emailing the businesses portion, I find, at least for the most successful campaigns that we've run, it's really important like who you actually get like the contact information from. So a lot of like the scrapers and the things that you kind of find off the internet, there'll be a lot of like emails that are like info@business.com or hello@business.com, which are okay for the most part if you're targeting like smaller businesses, because usually it's going to be the owner who's operating those accounts there. If you're really trying to actually like have a little bit better success, and when I talk about like success on like email outreach, like it is a volume play. So like being like 1% successful is actually like a great thing. Like you'll see some things will say like, oh, between like 5 to 12%. Some people will say like between 1 to 5%. Whenever I'm doing like any type of like outreach campaign, like I bottom shoot for like the lowest success rate, just to have like something that is a little bit more realistic. Because depending on your offer, especially if you're selling something that's like in the thousands of dollars, like it's going to be a lot tougher to sell that rather than maybe something like a subscription or just like an introduction into the actual business there. So when it comes to like running like that successful campaign, let's say again, you're shooting for 1%. If you can get 1,000 contacts and you send 1,000 emails, like that's 10 people. And when I talk about like success, that's like actually getting a reply from those people. Like that's great, because you can actually like automate this to keep hitting volume. And so when it comes to the volume side, you just want to shoot as many people as you can there in terms of like those targeted lists. So kind of coming back to the point where I started rambling there, but when it comes to the actual like email that you grab, so a lot of the times these scrapers or where you'll get these lists from, it'll be a lot of, again, the infos and the hello accounts where like the money really is in like almost like those contacts. So there's some scrapers that allow you to actually like go a little bit deeper, or if you use like Zoom Info or like Rocket Lane, or not Rocket Lane, I'm getting confused with the CRM. It's like Rocket Info or rocketleads.io or something. Like they have another good one where you can actually get like contact information from actual people in the organization. So if I'm a marketing company and I want to talk to someone about marketing, then I'm going to try, rather than hitting like a huge company up at an info email when they're like a $20 million construction company, I know that's going to go nowhere. I would much rather be served having someone on the inside of like a marketing, like a Bob at constructioncompany.com, that I can kind of bug a little bit. So like the quality of your list is really going to matter, and like making sure that you're positioning yourself, not like hard selling right off the get-go, but just saying like a quick little introduction, I find is going to be the best for business to business. Everything's going to be volume, and there's a million ways to do it. There's so many like intricacies when it comes to like email outreach, both from like a psychological marketing perspective, when it comes to like, what do I write for my copy? How do I A/B and test like the actual lines that are going to be within the email? There's so much stuff when it comes to like actually warming up the account, staying under the spam scores, making sure that you don't have the right or the wrong links within your email. Like there's so many things that can actually like jeopardize your campaign before you even like send off the email. So making sure that you have the right DNS records attached to your domain before you send off, making sure that again, it's very, very warmed up before you start actually sending off these emails, having something that's, maybe you're sending 1 email a day, 2 emails, 3, 4, 5, 6. Then the people that you are sending it to also have to actually respond to you. So you can't just like send things off into the Neververse. Like you have to actually make it look like it's a real email account. So all those things, again, business to business is good because you can kind of start to scale those up. There's a lot of platforms to help. Harrison has a really cool system that he made with Make that I, took a look at that looks really sweet too as well. But there's a bunch of different ways that you can actually like automate this, which is what I love, because at the end of the day, if you can find a way to automate it, it's going to be typically a cheaper way of like lead generation. And I'm not saying go ahead and go spam a bunch of millions of businesses about your offer there. Like you want to make sure that you're offering something quality, and what you're doing is really trying to start a conversation, not just kind of jam things into people's throats there. So when it comes to like business to business, that's very much like how we like to approach it. When it comes to like business to consumer, so when you're looking at what you're doing, Harrison, there, like the actual music industry, I think that's like a pretty clever way just to kind of get your foot in the door with people that are like-minded, right? So I find like a lot of like creative spaces, like being someone who has like a web design background, people want to collaborate with people in this space, and like you're not necessarily trying to, shoot a hard offer right them at right at the get-go saying like, buy my sample pack for $50 or whatever like that. Like you're just trying to, actually get involved a little bit with a conversation with these people. And before we even did like email outreach, like the biggest thing and where I learned a lot of my sales experience was like through door to door, which, people have different views on door to door, but I think it is by far the best way to like train you as a salesperson. And that in a way is like business to consumer. You know what I mean? Like you're not going to businesses knocking on their doors. Like you're going to people's homes and you're knocking on their door there. So a lot of the times, like you really just have to have like a genuine conversation with these people. And as simple as, I was reading some of your intro emails there, Harrison, like saying like, hey man, like just telling you who I am, like, just want to see if there's an open invitation to like chat there, like things like that. I think will have a much better success rate, even and above to when it comes to like business to business. Cause like the amount of emails we get from mass blasted spammers talking about like, hey, have you checked your SEO? I have a great campaign. Or are you looking on taking more clients? Like these things have become so prevalent that it's a little bit tougher to kind of differentiate yourself without having like a really, really soft offer. So like, I think going into the music space with something a little bit more collaborative where you're really just reaching out to these people, whether it be studios, whether it be actual people, artists you like, if you have like a high quality list, and I think like the money would really be in the list in terms of like the success rate of it. I think it could be an awesome way just to have like another way of generating leads for, a studio, for a person who just wants to collaborate with people. So I definitely could see there being some success in there, buddy.
So let's go a little bit deeper in terms of door to door, because door to door is you're talking to a person. So that's what I'm doing essentially, right?
Big time.
It's just talking, starting the conversation. And what you're essentially saying was you mentioned collaboration. So that's a really good way to put your foot in the door. And so for you, when you were doing door to door, like what gave you the most success? Because for this email outreach that I'm doing, I'm just positioning as like, look, this is AI. This is what it's trying to do. It's trying to connect us. Like, let's just connect. Let's just start a conversation. Like, what has your experience been for door to door if you were doing business to customer, right?
100%, man. Yeah. So biggest thing, again, over anything is like banking on like what actually is like a successful campaign for you. You know what I mean? Like for me, a good day of door to door is being like, you knock on 100 doors, you maybe get 1 to 5 people interested, man. So it's a lot of like volume.
Did you do, for example, I know this is going to sound wild, but did you do research? Did you like this neighborhood? Like, I know this neighborhood, like, I don't know, like, like 100%. That, you know what I mean? This neighborhood has this demographic. Like, was that kind of in your mind when you were doing door to door and trying to talk to people and relate?
For sure. In like certain ways, man, like, what the good neighborhoods are, what the non-good neighborhoods are. Like, like, for example, like I'd see like a new suburb being built because we'd run this on a year basis. Where I'm like, hey, perfect. Like one thing that they're going to need is fences, man. So like you're just getting all these new homes. Like we did fence construction, deck construction. Like that would be a perfect thing to kind of pitch to these people. Mind you, I don't think we got anyone on it, but it would be a good thing to actually try and rock and roll and put it through, man. Same thing if you're in like a neighborhood that's just like in the sense that like people aren't taking care of their lawns, or even vice versa. Let me go back on that. Like people who have like really, really nice lawns, and then you see someone who's sticking out of the dust, man, who has a bunch of weeds and stuff like that. Like you can kind of play into that without like insulting them. You can be like, hey man, like I want to get you up and going with your neighborhood, like I see you might be too busy to take care of that lawn, man. Like I can kind of get you taken care of. Like you do little bits of research, but for the most part, it's like as you're walking up to the door, like if you see someone with a Queen's University plate on the back of their car, I'm immediately going to drop the car that I went to Queens, right? Because like door to door is very like local. You just find like little touch points that you can relate to them on. You see a kid's playing soccer in the yard, you can talk about how you played Timbit soccer as a kid, like door to door is is already when you get to the door, these people realistically don't want to talk to you. Same thing when people are looking at their inbox. Realistically, if it's some random person getting into their inbox, they don't really want to talk to you unless you kind of intrigue them in some way. So like for door to door, you really want to take off the illusion of being a salesperson and just chat with them. Like they know why you're there, and you just have to kind of warm them up a little bit to at least allow them to let a student, clean their windows or paint their fence or paint their deck or something like that. So a little bit of research, but you really just play off like what the actual situation is. So like kind of taking them back to the email stuff, man, I think that's very much how like you segment email lists, right? Like you'll have different email groups for certain things and you tailor your message accordingly. Very much if I go to a house that's huge, I know he's going to have a lot of stuff to do. I'm going to make sure the prices are according to that neighborhood. Whereas if I go to a smaller home, I might do something more on the maintenance side. Like you kind of just segment to who you're talking to. And the great thing with like email outreach is that you can take a lot more time to actually like research that. But at the end of the day, number one name of the game is just volume of like high quality lists. Like that's going to make you, having the best email outreach message with the best sequence, might make you 5%, 2%, 1%, abysmal percent more successful. Like the biggest thing I think is like the quality of the list that you're kind of generating up there too as well.
Okay, so when you're talking about quality, what do you think about services like bark.com? And I think it's called bark.com, but it's a service essentially where they vet leads for you and you pay them per month, especially for the solopreneur, for the person who's independent.
Yeah.
In my mind, they're higher quality for sure, but it costs a pretty penny to get those tickets versus, grabbing as much content or leads or people from the internet. Like, or maybe I should ask this in a different way. So like, what do you think about like ads, like let's say ads that are targeted versus something like cold lead generation? Because I know that you've dabbled in both and you've seen the two sides of that. Like where do you think people should be focusing their efforts if they're running their business by themselves?
Yeah, I think it's tough. I think not tough necessarily, but like there's different phases for where you're at in the business. I think for when it comes to cold outreach, ads work amazing. That's like even for our business, like a lot of our, other than like direct referrals, a lot of our business is generated through advertising. But we have now built up a customer base and a revenue base that we can spend a lot of money every single month on ads and take the time to really optimize the spend for our ads, which takes some time right in the beginning. So if you're just starting out, just juicing up and ready to go, like ads might not be the best thing to dump a whole bunch of money in unless you're ready to have like a really consistent burn rate or a lot of money funneling back into the business. Like if you saved up a lot, it might be tough to take a really full gung-ho approach on ads. That's why I really like cold outreach. And like when we first started Imperium, which again is like the parent company of Blue Collar, like how we got most of our business was through cold outreach, either through emailing, through phoning, or through knocking on doors. Like Wes and I, like the first thing we did when we got into Kingston is like we walked all the way down Princess Street and knocked on every single door.
Door to door, baby.
Exactly, baby. Going back to the roots, you know what I mean?
Back to the roots.
Exactly, man. So like I think very much like if you're talking about like solopreneurs or people who are just starting up or don't have like a humongous advertising budget or a budget to allocate to marketing, like there's no better budget than like sweat equity when you're starting. You know what I mean? Like you want to actually get out there, whether it's, physical or you're spending your own time and you don't have to if you don't even understand how to use, I don't know if I'm allowed to swear on this podcast, so I'll try and keep it down. If you don't even know how to use any of these tools, you know what I mean? Like you don't have to necessarily have the best scraper. Okay. If you don't fucking know what you're doing when it comes to the internet and these tools and all these crazy things online, like you don't need a scraper to scrape thousands of people. Like if you can take like 100 targeted is probably gonna be better than 1,000 junk where like 500 of them are going to be bounced, where a bunch of them haven't been touched for a while. They're all info. Like if you can do a lot of research yourself by Googling your target demographic. Like business to consumer is a little bit different because you have to find like where those addresses and email things are, but like that's where Facebook groups comes into handing. That's where things where these types of people are, and you can actually like go in and look at the group members, message them via Facebook, message them again via email if their email's like public. And I think realistically, like if you are a solopreneur just getting started, cold outreach is going to be way more cost efficient for you to get going. And then if you want to automate it, usually it costs a little bit of money or time and skill set to develop, and then you can start ramping it up. But you're not going to find like a lower cost acquisition channel than just picking up the phone, sending an email, or getting out there and doing it yourself.
Hey, okay, okay, that sounds great. The last question I want to ask you here, for people who are watching and just starting, how did you iterate the process of cold outreach? Meaning you started with Imperium and you migrated to BCM, blue collar marketing. Now, I feel as if that was such a like it was a process almost of cold outreach where we'll just say cold outreach because we're talking about cold outreach at the moment, where you
Sure.
try something, you get feedback, and then you change it based off the feedback you get, and you just keep iterating until you hit like a niche or a market that can
Man.
explode, right? So how did that happen for you, and what would your advice be for people who are trying to find their niche or their market through cold outreach?
For sure, man. I think the biggest thing and why we've seen so much success in blue collar marketing is that we are very targeted. As simple as that sounds as like an answer, like that is realistically the answer. Like if you are going to start going after something, it is way harder to be general, whether you're a music producer, whether you're a studio, whether you're an agency like mine. Like if you want to like just get started up in something, like I really find that you need to be like targeted in what you're going after. So if like you're a music studio and you offer everything, you might as well niche yourself into something that you like very much specialize in, because you can always like grow afterwards. You look at guys like Ryan Reynolds, Deadpool. He has a vodka company and tequila company, but he was an actor first. Like they start specialized and then they start branching off into all these big things. So the biggest thing is to your point, man, is like niching down very specifically and then saying exactly like what you are. Like don't tiptoe around it. Like if you're a studio and your primary thing is, again, man, I don't know anything about music production, so I might be sounding silly here, but like your thing is just editing music or post production.
You got it. You
There's
got it.
so
Yeah.
many like there we go. There we go. Perfect, man. There's so many, I imagine, like other studios and other people that could use services on such a much more like a modular level that what you're offering. And if you just say this is what you are and you can perfect that process and you understand all the pain points of what people have within that specific thing, or if it's within a specific industry, whether it's, it doesn't have to be niche by product or niche by service. It can be niche by industry. So like, let's say you just want to do niche by industry for studios would be like niche by genre. Like you only work with rappers, you only work with rock, you only do electronic, you only do dubstep. Like these are all things that you can easily kind of make yourself seem already like the expert, which you'll become because, that's what you're passionate about. You'll have a much better chance when it comes to the actual outreach of it. And like when it comes to finding the niche, unless you're just completely money driven, like I imagine people get into music because they're passionate about it. Like it's a tough question in terms of what's the answer about finding that niche. You want to make sure that whatever you're doing has a profitable endpoint or end game. Like I don't want to start, if I was doing a business to business, I wouldn't target high school tutors for just like single high school tutors that have like no money or something like that. You know what I mean? Like I would go after something bigger that I know has like a horizon of bringing a lot of money, and then just make sure that you're super passionate about it. You know what I mean? So when it comes to the music, is like, what music do you like actually working on? Like what are the groups of people that you like to associate yourselves with? And then you can build a business around that and build a targeted message around that, build whether it's an email campaign, whatever type of like outreach you want to do. But the biggest thing is, again, being targeted, like very, very targeted, and saying like what you are. Like it should be very clear when someone hears your name or sees anything about you that they know like, okay, that's post-production in electronic. Like those are the guys, you know what I mean? Like that puts you a level above like any other generic offering right out the gate, because people automatically, they'll go with like, well, I'll go with him because he specializes in it. Where Imperium, that was one of our biggest problems, was we'd lose out contracts to people who, realistically, I thought we had a better skill set than them, but they just said we were websites for nonprofits. We were websites for lawyers. Like I look at their shit, it almost looked like junk, but they said that they were the best and they have experience in this. And a lot of their talking points, they could talk about it a little bit more, from a macro side. So being very targeted in the niche, I think is going to be the biggest success for anyone just getting started out and save you so many years of just trying to compete on such a macro level.
Dude, that is so helpful. That is like the golden nugget of this interview. Yeah, that's great.
And here we go.
Because you
Willy
know what?
Wonka.
The Willy Wonka just doing backflips.
Ah, there you go. I'm the blueberry boy.
The blueberry boy. But the takeaway from that, so for example, I am a music producer, so I'm going to target music production for all R&B artists. So that's very, very specific. So, but I
Big
could do an
time.
outreach being like, hey, listen, I only vocal correct or vocal pitch. I only pitch vocals. Like I correct vocals. That's literally all I do. Listen, I'm just putting my name out there. I specialize this. It is like $50 per. Like I just want to connect with people who know vocal editing. And you're just like the vocal editing
Big
guy.
time.
and then you just
100%, man.
you're known for that, and it seems genuine, the outreach. And this is what I talk to with a lot of people who do this, like, because I do a bit of coaching on the side, and so people that ask me like, what should my brand be, and I'm like, right off from the jump, you're doing too much, you're too wide. You can't be like a mixing,
Yeah.
mastering, production, everything. You need to go hyper specific, right? And that's great. So I think that I have nailed all the questions that I wanted to ask. So I think I'm just gonna like pause here. Is there anything you wanted to mention before we like sign off here?
Yeah, nothing too much, man. If you're setting up an email campaign, get all the foundational stuff right. Make sure your domains are set up right. Don't use the actual, I've seen this so many times, don't use your actual website to send domains. If it's, let's say, podcaststudio.com you're trying to get stuff for, make it like podcaststudioteam.com. And that's what you send emails off of. If you send emails off of your burner, like your main domain, you will burn your domain and it will make life very, very difficult for yourself. So make sure you kind of go through whatever help docs, listen to our boy Harrison here through his videos, man, and just get yourself dialed right when it comes to email campaigns.